everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my channel. This week I'm going to be continuing on with my Felicity dress project that you can see back there on the dress form. If you missed the first part of this project, I will link that video down below, but basically I am recreating this entire ensemble right here. This is Felicity's Christmas dress and I am going to be making this to hopefully be able to compete in the Emerald City Comic-Con Crown Championship of Cosplay contest. So we shall see. That deadline is coming up in, I think it's a little over a week away now at this point. They extended the deadline a bit. So we're going to basically do all of the work this week, see where we're at, and then submit it into the contest and see if I can get into it. My hope for this week is to completely finish the whole dress portion and possibly move on to some of the accessories, but I think probably most of the accessories are going to be in a third video, so we'll see how that goes. But at this point where we are is that the petticoat is completely done. So that's what you see back there. That's the petticoat. It is completely done, including the hem. I did the hem by hand between the last video and this video. And then you can also see the portion of the bodice up there as well. So the bodice is finished on the edges. That was the part that I did between the last video and this. So I have bound the neckline with bias tape and stitched that down by hand. That is finished. So basically bodice needs sleeves and it needs the skirt, and then that will be done. So this is the skirt panel right here, and I know that in the last video I mentioned that I should do the sleeves before the skirt, but to be honest, I'm just not in the mood to do sleeves right now. So I am going to attach the skirt to the bodice first instead. I already know that the bodice is a great fit. So basically this is two skirt panels right here, and this is going to get pleated up in lots of tiny little knife pleats, very much like the petticoat, just like that until it fits the bodice. So each one panel will go from center back to the edge of the front and just get attached there. The one thing about doing this kind of attachment is that the bodice has a point both in kind of the front sides here and then also in the center back. So this is going to be even with the highest curve over the hips, but it is going to be up inside where the points go, if that makes sense. Basically the point is going to come down over onto the skirt portion. So that makes it a little bit more challenging. I'm probably going to attach them by hand. We'll see, just because that was the more historical method. But yeah, I'm gonna go get to pleating and see how things are looking. So I have pleated up the whole skirt section here, and for the most part I pressed it down. I pinned the first little bit and then pressed down about, I don't know, 3 to 4 inches. Basically I was doing it on my sleeve board, so it was about this wide. And in the very front and in the very center back, I pressed it down further and put pins in the bottom as well. And that's because this is where it dips down. And so you can see here, these are the backs of the pins that I put in the center back. Then what I've done here is right about here is where the highest point over the hip is. So I've basically aligned here all the way across, and I've measured this portion of the bodice from the shoulder seam down to here to make sure it's the same on each side. And then because I was really struggling with how do I get the point to be nice and pointy with the binding and everything on it, the seam allowance and all that, so I decided to actually put the portion of the skirt right here inside the binding, and I'm just wrapping the binding around, and that means that I don't have to make it nice and pretty and pointy on the inside of the skirt. I just need to do it on the outside. So that's everything now pinned straight across on the inside. Now I'm going to flip everything over and pin right along the edge of everything here on the outside. And now the other side is all pinned into place as well. I used a pressing ham for this section right here because it does kind of flare out at the point. So I found that that was really, really helpful to have a pressing ham. But as you can see, I just pinned right along the edge. Some of them they caught from the other side. And now I'm going to do a prick stitch through this area right here just by hand, stitching that all into place. And then on the inside, I'm going to whip those in place to the lining so that you can't see them from the outside. And that should hopefully do it for attaching the skirt. Well, all of the stitches are now done. I actually wound up opting to do a running back stitch instead of a prick stitch like I mentioned before, just because I couldn't quite remember exactly the difference. So I've got all my tiny little hand stitches there, and then going over to the inside, you can see all my little whip stitches down at the top. Now I am slightly concerned because I feel like I remember doing this for, actually it may have even been my other Felicity dress last year, because it was something somewhat recent for 18th century where I whipped this down and then it kind of looked bulky. So yeah, I guess we'll see when I put this on if it's going to wind up looking bulky from the outside out here. Hopefully not. So keep your fingers crossed for me. But that was that. That took freaking forever because I'm the slowest hand stitcher, but I do think it looks very, very nice. So now that the bodice and skirt are attached, I am still not really wanting to work on sleeves. So I think I'm going to procrastinate that a little bit longer and hopefully get two other things accomplished today. One of which is I would like to do the other stomacher with the pink bow type embellishment. And the other is that I think I'd like to actually just do like the embellishment on the dress. So when we look at Felicity's dress here, we can see this like ribbon embellishment that goes all the way around her neckline and then all the way down the front of the dress. And I think I mentioned this in my last video, but I was not able to find like a wide ribbon trim in the exact blue of my fabric. So I am going to make this out of the fabric itself. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to cut strips and I am going to pink the edges. Now there's a couple options for pinking. Pinking is when you cut things in like little zigzags basically along the edge. And traditionally speaking, I think in the 18th century, they actually used a punch to do their pinking. I know that there are some like historical reproduction punches that you can get. At some point, I know someone also invented like some sort of a pinking machine where like you could roll the stuff through and it would like, you'd crank it or whatever and it would pink the edges. I don't know when that dates to though, but for me, I have two options. I have pinking shears. I've got like just the regular Ginger pinking shears that cut the little zigzags, but then I also have pinking rotary blades. So I have two styles of pinking rotary blades. I have a zigzag one and I have a scallop one. I'm actually kind of thinking that the scallop one would be really cool to use. So I think I'm gonna do a little test bit of fabric and just see what that looks like if I were to scallop the edges and then pleat it up. She's just got knife pleats on all of hers, so it's just like pleated in one direction. So yeah, I'm gonna try that and see how that works. I also have to figure out exactly how wide I want to scale it up to make it for me. So I think I might do a little bit of algebra and, you know, find for X for the scale, because that's what I usually do when I'm scaling something up, and just kind of see, you know, how wide it is that I want to make this trim, what would look best. So yeah, I'm gonna give that a go, do a test piece. The main reason I'm doing a test piece with the scallops is because just in case the poly taffeta doesn't like being scalloped, like if it wants to fray, basically, I don't want it to fray. And a zigzag will prevent more fraying than a scallop will, just because it's smaller. So that is why I'm doing a test. So maybe I'll just test like both strips and see what I like better, scallops versus zigzag. But I am planning to use the rotary blade because I find it really, really easy to do that, and you don't like hurt your wrist from, you know, continuously cutting with the scissors, and you can just lay it out on the cutting mat and like cut your long strips. So yeah, that's my plan. So it turns out I actually have three fancy rotary blades. This one is the pinking, this one is scallop and peak, and then this one is the wave. I tested it with the wave and I think I like that, but I might do another test with the scallop and peak here. Let me show you what a test looks like so far. So this is my test piece. I did do the algebra to do the scale. That actually told me to do 1.5 inches, but I decided that just looked too small. So this is 2 inches wide, and I think it looks good as far as like the width with the shoulder. The other one just, I think, would have been a little too narrow. And then this is what that wave one looks like there. So yeah, I think I might do one more that, like the other one I believe should look actually more scallop, where you kind of get that sharp point on the inside. So I'll do one more test strip of that, but otherwise this is the gist of things. So here is the scallop and peak version versus the wave version. I know they look quite similar, but I do like this one better. I think it's just kind of like a more subtle edge, which is good because this blade also works way better than this one. I actually had to cut so many places on here just because the blade didn't cut. It's a brand new blade, so I don't know what was up with that, but we're gonna go with the wave. I am literally now just pleating this by eye. I measured the very first box pleat that is in the center back of the neck, and that's the only one that I measured. The rest of these I am just doing so that they kind of match the one before them. I think they are probably about 1 1/4 to 1 3/8 inch wide pleats, with the underside being about 1/2 inch or 5/8 that's getting pleated underneath here. I do one little press on each pleat, stick a pin in it, and move on to the next one. So although I went and pleated up this entire strip flat on the ironing table, as it turns out, as I'm now pinning it to the bodice, flat doesn't really work because this is too sharp of a curve here around the neckline to get it to be flat. So I actually wound up unpinning everywhere where you see pins, or I guess unstitching because I had already sewn it flat. And now I have pressed it so that it actually curves. And not only does it curve this way, but then as it gets over here to kind of where it's going over the bust, I think it is then kind of curving this way. So that is what I had to do. I'm gonna have to redo the other side too. I think it looks quite good. There is this one bit where it's like a really steep curve, I guess, and it's sticking out. So I'm probably just gonna go in there with like my curved scissors and kind of cut that excess bit off just so it doesn't look kind of weird, because all of the rest of it still looks really pretty nice and smooth even as it's going around the curves. So once all of this is pinned in place, I'm just going to stitch this down. In some cases, it will mean stitching over my existing stitching from where I was stitching the pleats in place. And then in other cases like this, it will just be stitching for the first time because I just have these pleats pinned to the actual neckline. So there's all of that. We have trim. I really like how it came out. I did not yet finish the bottom because I haven't actually hemmed the dress yet. So I knew I had extra trim. I sewed it on to about like 4 inches from the bottom because I have a feeling I'm gonna have a fairly deep hem because I did on the petticoat. So we will see what that looks like, but now it's time to move on to the other stomacher. So I'm a little bit mad at myself because I just pulled out the wires from this like wired ribbon, and I've never had ribbon do this before, but it got really kind of wrinkly, and it's actually worse here in the middle. And I tried to iron it, and I swear that made it even worse. I don't think it's melting or anything. Dora, really? But there is definitely an issue here where like I cannot make it go flat. I'm kind of hoping that by cutting it into smaller pieces, I can maybe ease it out, but I'm definitely worried about this. I do have the like other color story of this ribbon that I got from the same seller that I did not remove the wire from. So if all else fails, I guess I could use that one or just order more. Dora, this is really inconvenient. But yeah, I'm really kind of pissed that this is happening because this has never happened to me before when removing wire from ribbon. Oh my God, Cat. Really? Really? That's for you. So here's my other dilemma. I bought 1 yard of this ribbon and I was thinking, okay, well, Felicity's has 3. Now, obviously this is doll sized. Mine is not doll sized. So I was thinking, okay, maybe I will do 4. So I bought enough ribbon that I should be able to do 4. I don't think it would be enough to do 5, but Felicity's stomacher has the ribbon like touching on each top and bottom. It's actually overlapping just a tiny bit. You can see on these sides, it is overlapping just a little bit. So obviously, like if I were to try to do that, I would need like, I don't even know, 6, 7, 8, something like that. There's a 9.5 inch gap between this right now. My ribbon is 2 inches wide. Now, obviously for scale, it should have been wider, but this was the widest ribbon that I could find that looked like the ombre ribbon here. So, I mean, I could go find wider ribbon that is like just pink, but this is the max width that seems to come for ombre. And even if I did significantly wider, like I would have to have so wide of ribbon to be able to get it to do just 3. I mean, if this is a 9.5 inch gap right here, then that means that this total would be 13.5 inches. So to divide that by 3, each ribbon would need to be like, what, 4 1/3 inches, a little more than that. I'm not going to find ribbon that wide, especially not ombre. I'm probably not even going to find pink ribbon that wide. So, plus I feel like it would look kind of bulky because like my width of this is nowhere near the scale of the length. Like it's not that much wider. It's less than 3 times as wide as this stomacher, but it is obviously way more than 3 times as tall. So that's my dilemma. So yeah, I have enough for 4. It just looks so sparse. I don't know if it would help if I like moved this one up a little and this one down a little so they could all kind of condense, but it just looks so sparse. Probably the only other option that I have that like would be wider, at least that I already have, would be just this bold pink, which is the same color as the darker pink here. This is a 3 inch wide ribbon, so it is like, you know, 1/3 wider than that, but it is all the same color, and I love the ombre of Felicity's. It's just that I would need so much wider ribbon or so many more pieces of ribbon. I mean, I could order another yard and space that in. Maybe I'll test it out with my like slightly more purple ombre and see what that looks like. Also, can we talk about how much smoother this ribbon is that still has the wire in it than what this turned into? So yeah, I forgot. It's not actually more purple. It's actually a slightly brighter pink. Kind of doesn't go into the purple gradient. In fact, maybe it would look good to have every other. I don't know. I guess that's an option. Not gonna lie, I don't hate this. Like, I think it actually looks better with all of them. This one seems a little not even, but yeah, I mean, obviously I haven't done the top one yet. I don't feel like it's a huge color difference. It does look more different in person than it does look on screen, I think, but even in person, I don't really hate it. And I feel like it's giving me the bow fill that I need, but is it too much is the question. I've opted to go with the 5 ribbons, so it is alternating every other. This is the one that still has the wire in it, in fact, and then this is the first one that I was using, and now I've got some pearls. I don't know scale-wise, I feel like they might still be a little bit small. You can see that one right in place there, but it's the biggest pearls that I have, so I think we're going to go with it at least for now. And here is the nearly finished stomacher. I still need to add the lace at the top, which I still need to purchase, the narrow lace, but otherwise all of the ribbons and the little pearls are on. That's what it looks like on the back, by the way, in case you were curious. So you can see the 2 different shades of ribbon. I feel like it's more obvious there. And I may or may not do Whopper Poppers as a closure, otherwise it will just be pinned closed with the bodice. All right, dress is on with stomacher number 2, as you can see here, and even a sleeve mock-up. This is actually the sleeve pattern that I used for the Brunswick like last month, and I figured it is the right shape. So why not go for it? It's 18th century, it's the right shape. The one thing that I think needs to be tweaked on the sleeve, it's not the sleeve, it's what I talked to you about in the last video, I believe, where this is just really wide right here, this strap. So I think that I need to just cut a little bit of that off, set the sleeve up like just that little bit more, probably up to maybe even a 1/2 inch at the widest, but I think that's what's causing these little sleeve wrinkles here, because the sleeve's just not sitting up far enough as it should. But I think that the rest of it's good. It's a little on the big side, but so is Felicity's, and I need to have movement and stuff, so I think that that is probably good. Hers is definitely more straight across at the bottom, so I might even this out just a little bit and like have it go straight across instead of dipping down in the back. I do think this is more 18th century, but it's not what hers is doing. So I'm going to study that in the mirror. But as you can see, I've got like 3 little tucks in the back that are the little pleats that are so common in 18th century sleeves to give motion and all of that sort of stuff. So those are staying. So yeah, I think it just needs to go up just a hair bit more there. I do just have the stomacher pinned in right now, but it was again a pain to put it on. I just don't really know that whopper poppers will hold. So I might have to go with the pins. The nice thing at least is that the pins hide in the trim, I think, really well. Like, I don't think you might be able to see that one because he's sticking out a little, and I've got ones with actual pin heads on. But I think if I were to use like straight metal, you wouldn't see them at all. And I think they're also kind of being protected from stabbing me, you know, would be good. The one thing here is I just don't know when I pin it if I'm pinning it evenly. And obviously I need this to be centered, particularly on this stomacher. The other one is not so obvious, but like I need this to be centered, and it's just very hard to pin that on yourself. I don't feel like it's even. It's definitely, like this one down here, I am definitely shorter on this side than I am on this side. I don't know. The one other thing that I'm noticing now that I'm having it on is kind of my fear realized for the center back of the dress, at least, where I just feel like it's not getting close to me because of the pleats that I stitched up in the point. Like, I don't know, it just feels kind of puffy right here, and it's literally right here in the point that I'm feeling it. Everywhere else, totally fine. Like, I like that I went up with it here. I think that's great. But the back, maybe not. And so what I'm thinking is, if it bothers me enough, I'm going to undo the tacking whip stitches that I did, hi Dora, in the center back. Like basically, because right here, there's only a 1/2 inch seam allowance. It needs to be as it is. But after that, I could flip it down, because I know that that was pretty common, or I'm pretty sure that was pretty common in the 18th century, where it would just kind of flip down and help to give a little bit more fullness in the skirt. I know they did that in the 1780s. I would assume they did that in the 70s as well. But yeah, if it bothers me enough, that's what I'm going to do. But I really like how the trim looks. It will look even nicer, I think, when it has the lace. Don't try and jump on me, Missy. Don't do that. I'm talking. So now the other thing that I'm going to do while I have it on, before I even fix the sleeve, is I am going to mark the hem of this dress, and that way I can do the hem. The hem will, are we doing like a Michelangelo thing here? The hem will probably not actually be stitched by me until like after this video is over, because it's Saturday now and I really want to get the sleeves and ideally the lace done today. And of course the sleeves have all that ruched embellishment and the lace like furbelows on, or engagements if you really want to be proper on the sleeves as well. So got a lot of work to do on the sleeves, but I think we are in the right direction. Yes? I'm gonna go pet my cat now. I think I am going to have to pin this shut after all, or find something besides whopper poppers, because like this space right here, there's actually not enough width to put a whopper popper on, and the pins notate like where the bodice actually came to. So yeah, that unfortunately won't work. Well, I'm not going to pin everything back in place, but I think that this is much better as far as the shoulder width. It probably could even come in a little bit more, because it still is like the very edge of my shoulder. But I think that where we are now is a good enough place for me to cut it out in the taffeta, because obviously the taffeta is going to act differently than just this cotton, which can like move and bend with my arm. Taffeta's not going to do that. So I think that I will cut it out in the taffeta, see if this needs to wind up going up a little bit more, or see if the sleeve can maybe even be taken in so that it's not so wrinkly. And I still haven't decided about this scoopness, whether this needs to be shortened on this side, so I'm gonna leave that for the moment as well, and we'll just work all of that out in the taffeta. You guys, I look like Felicity! I changed her into her ribbon stomacher since, you know, I'm wearing the ribbon stomacher. I'm still trying to figure out the whole pinning situation. I'm not gonna do pinning. Like, nope. It took me a good probably 10 to 15 minutes just to pin the stomacher in place, and bent many pins in the process. And yeah, so I will be figuring out some sort of different solution for the stomacher situation, because pinning's not gonna fly. But oh my gosh, I am so excited with how this looks. I think that the 5 ribbon option wound up being really good. Obviously, I do also have sleeves now. I have not finished the edges of the sleeves, but I have decided that I like this like dipping down in the back, higher in the front. So I am gonna go with that. I feel like hers maybe kind of do that too. They just don't stay that way, like they ride back up, but it definitely seems like it is lower in the back than in the front. So yeah. So I'm just going to turn up a narrow hem on this. Honestly, I'm probably going to bind it because I really do think that the length is pretty good, and I feel like turning it up twice, especially since it's curved at the bottom, is just going to be kind of wonky. So I think I'm just going to bind it. And then I have lace that is going to be gathered up to be the sleeve ruffle lace. So that's just going to get gathered up and attached into the sleeves. And then I have to figure out the ruching situation. I can't remember if it was the last video or this video that I mentioned trying to figure out if I wanted to finish the edges of the ruching like she has. So you can see her ruchedness. Sorry, it's really bright in here, but it is finished edges top and bottom. But I could also just do the scallops and, you know, make it work that way, because I think that that would look good and would kind of echo the trim, and it wouldn't get too thick, because that's kind of what I'm worried about with the ruching, that it would wind up getting really thick, especially if I have a turned hem, meaning that area would be like 3 times turned and then gathered, and I feel like that is maybe not the best idea. I realized that I did pull out some lace that could potentially work for neckline. Right now it's kind of set up as beading lace, so that means that it has this area right here that you can run a ribbon through, but I have actually taken that off in the past, and I think like the other end of it might have it taken off, or maybe I have another length where it's taken off. So I could take that off and then gather this up, and I think it would give the right look here so that I wouldn't have to go to Joann's and get other lace, or hope to get other lace. So I think that that will work. But yeah, oh, and I've pinned up the hem, so that's all done. I just need to stitch it by hand. But like I said, that will probably be after tomorrow. Today is Saturday, by the way. I don't remember if I mentioned it, but it's like Saturday mid-afternoon right now. Oddly enough, it is Dress Like an AG Day, sponsored by 5 Hens and a Cockatiel, I think is her Instagram username. She is an amazing American Girl photographer, like that actually does photography like for American Girl, like the company, but she's actually local to here too. But she is hosting this Dress Like an AG Day, so I'm gonna take some pictures of my like partially finished look and post those to Instagram, so you will have already seen this probably if you follow me on Instagram at Lady Rebecca Fashions. But yeah, then I will wind up adding the ruche trim, the lace down here, the lace up around the top and on both of the stomachers, because this same lace will go on both of the stomachers. And yeah, we'll see how much of that I get done tonight, because tomorrow is actually closing day of Cinderella, so I have to be up at the theater for that and then for a cast party afterwards. So I'm probably not going to get any sewing done tomorrow is my guess. So I'm hoping that I can get all of this done today. Probably not figuring out the closure situation on the stomacher, but hopefully everything else would be really great. But I'm just so excited that I look just like her. That's who I keep looking at. I keep looking at Felicity because we're twins and I love it so much. I decided while I still had the dress on to check the scale for Felicity's little ruffles here, and it wound up being 5 inches wide. So here we go. Here are my ruffles. I just cut them using the rotary cutter, 5 inches wide, and then divided that by 4 because hers are literally like 1/4, 1/4, 1/2. So this is 1 1/4, 1 1/4, 2 1/2. And I don't even know really how long this was. I think it was like, I don't know, 48 or 50 inches long total, but I just ruched it up using 1 stitch on the sewing machine, 1 gathering stitch each side, and I think that looks really nice. I don't think I've pulled it all the way to fit because I'm still wearing the dress, but I am going to hem the dress sleeves and then put these on. I'll have to finish the edges here, but that will probably do it for the sleeve ruffles. So I have pulled up gathering stitches on my lace. I left it all as 1 uncut piece right now, as in like all of the lace that I bought, even though it's really for 2 sleeves, because I wasn't sure if I would want exactly half or if I would want less than that for the sleeves, but it's looking like the exactly half point is probably going to be pretty good. By the way, I did put the bias tape on the one side of the sleeves, and it is pressed and pinned in place, but I have to hand stitch it. And I obviously have to hand stitch it before I really add any of the other trim. I had kind of been thinking about like, oh, maybe I could hand stitch this at the same time and use the same line of stitching for that. But then like if I ever want or need to take this off, then that would also come off. So I don't know, we'll see what I decide. But as for now, I'm going to cut this in twain and then gather up the other side, or pull up the gathering stitches on the other side, and basically sew the ends to each other so that, you know, each one is a circle, and that way I can put them into the sleeve. So this is what it looks like with the inside binding stitched down and the lace all attached. So you can see what that looks like inside as well. I just did a whip stitch. And then over here I have pinned the one ruched panel into place. It took a lot of pinning. It's probably a little bit thicker, longer than it needs to be, because yeah, that's a lot, but I think it'll look really good. Now I'm just going to stitch down with machine right on top of the gathering stitches, and hopefully it fits around the free arm of the machine, because otherwise that's going to be impossible and I'm going to have to use my hand. So we shall see, but I'm liking the way it looks so far. Alright, I am so excited because I have finished all of the sleeve decorations. I think they look so good. I am really happy with how they look. I hope that they feel comfy on, because they are thick. But yeah, I haven't put it on yet because that would mean, you know, needing to put on stays and needing to take off my long sleeves of my Samantha midi dress, because today is dress like an AG day, dress like an American Girl all day. So yeah, I changed into this after I was wearing this and have been wearing the midi dress for the rest of the day. If you want to see how I made the midi dress, I will link those videos, that video, I can't remember if it was 1 or 2, but I'll link that down below in case you wanted to see more American Girl cosplay content. But yeah, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I don't feel like it should be uncomfy. I think it'll be fine, even though it is pretty darn thick. I probably should have gone with a shorter band for ruching this up, because it wound up being just very highly ruched. But it looks just like Felicity's, and I really like, oh, her hair's blocking. There we go. It looks just like Felicity's. I really like the scalloped edges on there. I think that that looks very nice. So at this point, I think the only thing left besides me hand hemming the hem is to do the lace. So I'm going to grab out the lace that I have here, kind of just like gather some of it up and take a look at what it looks like, because it's cheapy Joanne lace, like, let's be honest, but so is all of this. It just doesn't quite have the same motif. So yeah, I'll see how that looks, if I like it or not, and if not, I will try to go to Joann's tomorrow. But again, I probably don't have sewing time tomorrow, so we'll see how that goes. So I was so close to finishing this whole dress this week, but not quite. I do have the lace attached here. It's just pinned in at the moment though, so I do still need to whip stitch this on. And the same thing with the stomachers. I have the lace pinned on to the top of the stomacher. So what I'm going to do between this video and the next video is I'm going to stitch down all of that lace and stitch the hem of the dress, and then figure out, hopefully, maybe, if there's something I can do for closures for the stomacher. But I will address that in the next video. So yeah, but the hand sewing I'll be doing between now and then. But yeah, so close. I'm very excited for how this looks looking. You will see like the full outfit at the end of next week's video, because I am going to be making the pinner cap, the mitts, and the muff next week, and even her like little ribbon tie pearl necklace. So yeah, all of that will be next week. So do make sure that you check back for that video. But hopefully you liked this video. If you liked this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube twice a week, with my sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays and other costuming content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks right here on YouTube. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Sharon, Mirage, Laura, and Jean. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!